Okay, well, I think we're going to get going. Again, welcome to our webinar. My name's John. If I haven't met you yet, welcome. Thanks for joining in. Jason, my fellow presenter, is going to join. He's just tying up someone with a student as we speak. So this morning's webinar, as you already know, is the pathway to collegiate golf. Hoping to give you some information on what that process looks like and maybe some helps along the way to make that a little bit easier to navigate, and also an understanding of responsibilities are going to look like for the athlete. So whatever that, for some reason the screen went down. So here's a quick look at what we're going to cover this morning. Basically, we're going to have a look at what are the various options for collegiate golf. Where can you go and play collegiate golf? How good do you need to be to play collegiate? David C there. There we go. We're going to have a look at are grades important? All you parents on the line will be happy to hear the answer in that. What are the steps to earning or starting to have a best chance to earn a golf scholarship? When should you get started? Stuff the athletes can be doing to get recruited more easily, and then a little bit of help, some considerations on what or how to choose a good school. So if we could start with a question, and either unmute yourself and give your answer, or if you want to type your answer in the chat box. How good do we think we have to be as players to have a chance to play collegiate golf? Like, what sort of scoring average do you think we need? Who's got some thoughts on that? Okay, not a lot of thoughts coming in. Okay, so who thinks that if you break 80, you have a chance to play college golf? If you're on video, you can raise your hand. If you need to use the chat box, we can do that as well. Breaking 80, you have a chance to play college golf? Tristan, thank you. Who thinks you need to be able to shoot 75 or lower in tournaments to be able to play college golf? David C is giving me a scratch or better. Thanks for that. Okay. Who thinks you have to shoot under par to play college golf? Scratch or better would be someone who shoots around par kind of half the time, probably. Do we have to shoot under par to play college golf? Okay, not a whole lot of chatter going on. Sorry, who's that? Okay, so not a lot of answers coming in, so why don't I just flip to the next tile and we'll have a quick look at what it does take to play college golf. My apologies. The next tile is what are our options? Let's quickly buzz through the options for playing college golf, and then the next tile we'll have a look at how good we have to be. So as a lot of you probably already know, there are a few options for playing college golf. As the screen shows, the NCAA, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, has 3 divisions, 1, 2, and 3. Division 1 being the best college golf levels. Probably looking at somewhere a little bit more than 300 schools in the Division 1 system that presently have golf programs, give or take. And then the divisions 2 and 3 don't have quite that many schools, but there are lots of options. NAIA is another option. Generally not quite as competitive, although there's lots of great schools in that association, but generally not quite as competitive. And also the academic standards are, if we're generalizing, maybe not quite so stringent. JUCO stands for junior college. That's an option for a lot of kids that either need to raise their grades a little bit to be able to get into a 4-year college, or maybe players that are looking to go play some college golf, hope to play good, hope to play well, get some good tournament results, and use those results to attract some scholarship funding to bigger schools. Canada West, that would be our version on the West Coast of the bigger colleges in Canada. Examples of those schools would be University of Victoria plays in Canada West, UBC, University of Fraser Valley, and then CCAA, which is the Canadian College Athletic Association. Those would be, generally speaking, smaller schools. An example of a school plays in that division, Camosun College here in Victoria, Vancouver Island University up in Nanaimo, and some smaller schools that play in that association. There's a nice document. You can see a link here at the bottom of the screen that goes through Golf Canada put together a document that gives you all the information on the various levels and some more detailed information. So at the end of this presentation, what I've done is I've put all of these links, all these documents that are helpful onto one document. So if you're interested in getting the sort of compilation of all the information I've compiled, please reach out to us and I'll be glad to send you that in one little easy to use document. So there are quite a few options. As you can imagine, to play Division I golf in the NCAA versus playing small college golf in Canada, there are going to be a number of opportunities depending on your scoring average and also the academics that you're looking for. So let's have a quick look at how good do we have to be to really start considering college golf as an option. First, if we look at young men, the metrics we got on the screen here, you can read them as well as I can. Anybody who's watching golf on TV or seeing what these guys are doing, they're hitting the ball further and further and further on the PGA Tour, and college golf is no different. So if you want to get the attention of a golf coach in the United States especially, you're going to need ball speeds upwards 170 miles an hour. That's going to put your swing speed in the neighborhood of about 115 miles an hour. So you can sort of have an idea of where you are now and you know how much speed you might have to add if you're not already there. Scoring average, certainly it depends what level of school you're trying to go to, but a tournament average of 71, around par. That's a tournament average, not a handicap. That would put you in the range to probably have a lot of good options at the college level. Certainly if your scoring average is lower than that, it's better. If your scoring average is a little bit higher than that, you do have options as well. Those of you that are familiar with the TrackMan Combine, that's basically a ball striking test that the TrackMan has in their software. It's a metric that a lot of college coaches are using now to sort of measure someone's ball striking ability. A metric or a score rather of 75 to 80 in that test would definitely attract the attention of college coaches. And here's some other statistics you can start to probably track yourself if you don't have a launch monitor at your disposal or anything else. Basically, if you're able to hit 12 greens in regulation per round, about half of those inside 20 feet, and a conversion rate of about 50% of those opportunities, so you're making about 3 birdies per round. That's going to be a package that's going to put you around par in terms of your scores. So one way to sort of look at how do we get to a scoring range of around par in tournaments, those statistics there would certainly get you in the ballpark. And then from a short game standpoint, as you can see, when you get inside 30 yards or so from the green, we'd love you to be getting at least half of those shots within 6 feet. And basically your conversion rate is going to be 60% or better. In other words, you get around the green, you're going to be getting up and down for par or birdie on par 5s in 2 shots at least 60% of the time. So pretty proficient. We look at the young ladies, young women in the crowd, ball speed about 130 or at least trending in that direction. Scoring average of under 80 in tournaments would certainly get you on the radar of a lot of college coaches. Obviously, as that scoring average goes down, more and more coaches become interested. You'll have just more and more options. TrackMan Combine score of 65 or more. And then the metrics, same sort of idea with greens and reg, 8 greens in regulation, 4 of those inside 20 feet, averaging about 2 birdies per round. And we're going to give you the same short game standards, probably a little high, quite honestly, than maybe you need. But there's no reason if you want to work hard that your short game can't become a really big strength for all of us. So that's sort of our thinking there. Okay, any questions so far? Hopefully you're going to unmute yourself and yell them out, or fire them in the chat box. Okay, moving on. Are grades important? A big yes. Okay, so hopefully the parents are loving that. Basically for most of us, and I was lucky enough to play college golf. I went to University of Washington for 4 years. Most of us, when we're young, are thinking we want to be really awesome at golf. Maybe we want to play professionally someday. But the reality is that for most of us, if we can go to play college golf and get an education, that's going to be a fantastic time, lots of fun. And also, of course, getting a great education will set us up with lots of options after we leave university. So grades are important once we get into school, but they are hugely important in the process of trying to get a college golf scholarship. Most of the players that we work with, they get some athletic scholarship money, and it's far easier to get academic scholarship funding. So keep that in mind. Bottom line is, if your grades aren't good enough to get into a school, obviously the golf coach is not going to have any interest in you, because you can't even get into the school that he or she's coaching at. Secondly, they're really reluctant to recruit players that they have concerns about the ability to maintain their eligibility academically. Because once you get into college, you have to maintain your grades to stay eligible to play in tournaments. So if you're on the borderline with your grades and a coach is looking at you and they like you as a player, but they have concerns that maybe your grades will be a challenge when you start to deal with all that goes into college life, they're going to be less excited about recruiting you, because they have concerns that maybe your grades will fall off and you won't even be able to play for the team. So you want to have great grades to have lots of options to get into schools. You want to have great grades to instill confidence in the coaches that you're going to be, you're not going to be a headache for them as they're compiling their team. And the last bit I'll say on grades is, if a coach is looking at two players and they're sort of the same skill level, the same scores, and so on and so forth, the player with higher grades is always going to get the nod for the reasons I just spoke about. So hopefully that drills home super important grades, how important grades are. And those grades are really going to stretch back as far as grade 9 in terms of when they start to become important. So it's not just grade 12 and have good grades. We got to start buckling down, having good grades really all through our high school years. Does anybody have any questions? I'll trust you guys to ask them if you have them from here forward, so I don't keep badgering you about whether you have questions. Okay, so moving along, what's the first step? Well, interestingly enough, golf coaches from both major organizations, associations in the States, they cannot even communicate with you until you register, specifically until you register with their recruiting or eligibility centers. So again, I've got all these links for you on the document I'm happy to send you. But basically, if you want to go play an NCAA golf, you need to go and register at their eligibility website. Golf coaches cannot communicate with you in any way until you do that. So literally, you could be shooting 63 every day, winning every tournament by 20, and these golf coaches cannot speak with you until you register. So really, when we see the timeline as we go through in a couple minutes, the timeline for what we should be doing, you'll see that that's really the first step. Okay, and like I said, I've got a couple links for you that will show you where to go to register, and also there's a nice checklist of things to have ready for you when you go on the website, so the registration process will be as easy as possible. Okay, so moving on, we'll just have a quick look at some rules, an overview of how the recruiting process looks. NCAA process, coaches, assuming you're registered on that recruiting or eligibility site, coaches can start to communicate with a golfer after June 15th of their grade 10 year. Okay, so no matter how good you are, they cannot communicate directly with the athlete before that point. However, players can communicate with them. They can send them emails, they can send them information. Golf coaches, university golf coaches, can also communicate with the golf coaches that are local. For example, the players that I work with, university coaches are already contacting me for a couple of them that are young, because they can't speak directly to the athlete, but they can speak to me about the athlete. So there are some interesting, I guess, rules or guidelines about how this recruiting process can go. Sorry, just looking at a question from Adam. Will you make this video available so I can watch it again with my son? Absolutely. We're recording this right now, so reach out to us afterwards, Adam, and we'll make this available to you. Thanks for the question. Okay, so the recruiting rules are a little convoluted, a little tricky. So again, I've given you some links to go through. I'm happy to answer questions as best as I can after the fact if you want to reach out to us with a phone call. That was an inadvertent. Shoot, I was trying to get rid of the question. Okay, sorry about that. So I'm happy to guide you along any way I can, or if you're already working with a coach, they'll probably be savvy with a lot of these things as well. So the players can reach out to the schools before that point. You'll see unofficial visits can happen on August 1st before grade 11. An unofficial visit is basically a visit paid for by the family, not by the school. Official visits, I don't recall the exact date, but the official visits where schools can start paying for the athlete's trip to come and visit the campus, those obviously happen later. I want to say they're in the fall of the grade 11 year, but I'd want to check to make sure. And the last thing I put on there is contact, evaluation, quiet, and dead periods. And basically, not to make this even more tricky, but again, there's different time windows throughout the year where the communication that is allowed between coaches and athletes is different. Contact periods, pretty much all communication can happen. Evaluation, coaches, you're talking college coaches, can watch players in tournaments, but they aren't allowed to speak face to face. So it gets a little, quite honestly, it gets a little crazy trying to understand and remember all the rules. But there are places, like I said, I'll direct you to that will outline the rules. So before you do anything when you're doing this recruiting process, you just have a resource to look at, or we'll guide you through it as to when communications can and cannot happen. Obviously, college coaches are very aware of these rules as well, so they're not going to be doing anything to jeopardize the future eligibility of the athletes as well. Now, if we go from the NCAA world to the NAIA world, the NAIA is quite a bit, let's say, looser with the rules. Pretty much anything goes until, as far as I could find, until really you show up at campus, get equipment or uniforms, and actually take part in an official practice at a school, you're still open game for any coach in the country. Once you start competing for a school, and competing would be in attending official practices, etc., then there are rules that kick in that other coaches can't recruit you when you're playing for a different school. But prior to that, all through your high school years, NAIA coaches, the communication pathways are pretty open. There aren't very many regulations that govern when and how they can communicate with you. So NAIA isn't anywhere near as strict as the NCAA. Okay, just getting some advice on where we're going to put that video for you. Okay, so here's a little timeline I put together just to start having an understanding of when we should be doing things. Basically, we're talking younger athletes, really up until grade 8. Basically, that's the time window you guys should be playing as many different sports as you can, trying as many different things as you can. Love players to be playing all kinds of different sports. The athleticism and the body control things that we learn from playing a number of different sports cannot be overvalued. Players that play lots of different sports are generally better athletes, and better athletes play better golf. So we'd love to see all you guys playing tons of different sports, really up into grade 8, even beyond. We slip into grade 9. Now we're looking at a time window when it's okay to start registering at those eligibility centers we spoke of. not a bad time to start reaching out to coaches as we get into grade 10. You can do it earlier if you believe the results you have are compelling. Again, we're always happy to give you a sense of whether that's the case or not. If you want to reach out to us, we're happy to guide you along. Getting into grade 11, we're now looking at SAT and those sorts of things, preparation for and writing of the SAT, the Scholastic Aptitude Test, I believe it is. Jason's just parachuted in from, I don't know, wherever you were, somewhere awesome.
I was being awesome.
So grade 11, we want to start preparing for and writing an SAT. Those of you not familiar with the SAT, basically a written test. I think there's an English portion and a math portion. You get scores, and then basically is like a tournament score on your academic prowess. So schools will have different standards for how high your SAT score needs to be to be eligible to get into the school. And see all my previous comments about how important education is. So SAT scores are just another component of that part of the process. And then as we get into grade 12, most athletes are now in the world of starting to commit to the school that they've been communicating with. A lot of athletes, it's okay if you don't have a commitment as you go into grade 12. For example, I finished high school. I went to University of Victoria for a year, and then I transferred to University of Washington after 1 year post collegiate. Gave me a chance to practice a little bit more, get some more tournament results, and was able to transfer to UW and went there for 4 years after 1 year at UVic. So if you're not your phone's not ringing off the hook, from college coaches, don't worry, just keep working hard, and that process will play out when it's supposed to. Again, assuming no questions. Bueller. You guys are too young for that reference. Okay, moving along. So let's have a quick discussion about how should we reach out to coaches. We're going to start talking a little bit about getting in touch with them, starting a relationship, getting on their radar so that they start desperately wanting us to play on their team. So the first thing I've got there is just send them a letter of introduction. Hey, Coach Jones, my name is Sheila. I'm really interested in playing for your university team in 3 years. I've done some research. I love the looks of what you're doing. Pump their tires a little bit. Everybody likes to be complimented. And just say, this is who I am. I'm a junior golfer from wherever you live. I'm really working hard on my game, blah, blah, blah. I'd love to stay in touch. Hopefully that's okay. If you wouldn't mind, send me some information about your program. I'd love to learn more. Thanks. Have a great day. Signed, Sheila. So that email goes out. Don't be upset if they don't reply. Coaches are busy. Coaches are doing stuff. But now you've been in their inbox. They know you. Maybe a follow-up email a couple weeks later. Hey, just following up. Hope you're having a great day. Thought I'd send you some of my tournament results and my grades, et cetera, all the stuff you see there. And then just basically stay in touch. Even if they're not replying to you, coaches like persistence. Persistence shows someone really wants it. Persistence shows the kind of stick-to-itiveness that they want in a college athlete. So even if a coach is not replying to you, keep in their ear, keep sending them results. You see regular updates with tournament results and so on. And then the final piece of this discussion is it's really nice to have an online presence, like a web page or something like that, where you can post some swing videos, you can post your scoring updates. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. We can talk to you about that. It could be your own Facebook page, whatever. Just sort of keep that in mind. The last thing I want to talk about on this whole recruiting process is there's lots of services out there that offer you provide you the service of finding or pairing you up with schools and getting you scholarship funding. Quite a heavy fee to be paid. You're paying a percentage or an upfront fee or a percentage of the funding you get. So do some research before you decide to go that route. And also, there's a lot of college coaches I've talked to that aren't super fond of that part of the business, so to speak. For whatever reason, they're not as likely to recruit an athlete who's enlisted the services of an agent, so to speak. So I'd be cautious moving forward in that direction. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I would be cautious and do some research on who you're entertaining as a potential agent, and also what their track record is.
And let us provide input on that. We do have some experience with who's worked well, and so if you're at that point in your journey and you need that contact, either myself or John, we can help with that.
Okay, then the next business, and we'll have hopefully some questions, is just I put some thoughts down on how do we select a school. As I know, basically when I talk to parents and players, the parents are all about the academics the school is providing. The players are pretty much all about how much scholarship and how cool the golf bags look. So we've had quite a few athletes over the years that make the wrong decision, and unfortunately, they end up at a school that's not a good fit for whatever reason. So sometimes it's better to go to a school that may not seem like the obvious choice when you start to consider all the things that go into it. So just put down a quick list. There's a few more I'm sure we could come up with. The quality of the academics, geographic location, or is it snowbound for 5 months of the year, etc. How big a city is it located in, and where in the city is it located? USC comes to mind. Great school, fantastic history of sports and academics. It's basically right in the heart of Los Angeles. So everyone can make their mind up whether that's a good fit for the athlete in question. Is someone ready to handle living in a very busy, hectic sort of city, or might they be better off finding a campus that's a little bit less urban? What kind of facilities does a program provide? Golf course, practice facilities. What's the access like, and also where is it located? I had a lot of kids go to schools, love the golf course, but it's 45 minutes from campus and they don't have a car. And then all I hear about is, yeah, I didn't practice much this week because I couldn't get a ride. So they spend a whole year at some school and they play less golf than they do here in Victoria because they just can't get to the facility. So keep that in mind. What kind of tournament schedule? What kind of conferences is the school in? Are they playing great events? Are they playing great venues? What other schools are they playing against in those events? Sometimes smaller schools still play great schedules against, for example, on the West Coast, there's schools in California that play against all the Pac-12 schools in their tournaments. So you're playing with and against great players all the time, even though you're not at a Pac-12 school. How deep is the team? So if you're coming in as a freshman, do they have 5 other former world champion freshmen? You can imagine if you're competing against a bunch of other freshmen who are all awesome, it's going to be a little bit more challenging to make the travel team. Conversely, if you're going in and the team is all seniors and juniors, you can imagine as you get better, you might be able to step into a frontline role on that team. So deciding on whether you want to go to a really stacked school and play with players all day, every day at home, or whether you want to go to a school that isn't so stacked and you want to travel a little bit more. For the most part, traveling to tournaments is more fun than hanging out at your home course and trying to beat up your buddy, but both have merit for getting better at golf. Coach's experience, where's the coach been? What's he or she done? What does he or she provide to the team, and what does the athlete get from that coaching relationship? Distance from home, ability to visit for holidays. It gets quite costly if you're going to a school in Florida, for example. It makes it tricky to get home on holidays. I was lucky I went to school in Seattle, so I still didn't get home as much as my mom wanted me to, but I was able to come home quite a bit. And of course, maybe most importantly, they got to have a cool logo. No cool logo, don't go there. So W, right? Okay. We have a question there from.
We've got a couple of questions. One is, yes, we're going to have the video of this.
Already answered that.
We already did that. And then what kind of yardages can players expect to play from? Well, that depends. I'm going to let you kind of talk about that a little bit more, but it depends.
Yeah, interestingly enough, quite often college course setups are more challenging than the PGA Tour. PGA Tour guys get a little bit, let's say, upset if you make them play the back tees everywhere because they don't get to shoot 65. Where college tournament setups are quite often tips and challenging pin locations. So I think 7,000 plus is probably a realistic zone to expect as you get to. That's probably NCAA Div 1 sort of standard. You wouldn't be playing those sorts of lengths as you go down to Div 2 and Div 3 and AIA. You're going to find a little bit shorter, a little bit easier course setups.
How about for the ladies? What do you think?
Ladies, I would say 63 to 6,500.
That's Div 1 though.
Yeah.
Kind of LPGA numbers.
Yeah.
The other cool thing about college golf is that in a lot of cases, the golf courses that you have access to are some of the best in whatever major center you're traveling to. Private clubs, high-end clubs tend to be more generous with amateur sports than they do with professional sports. So it is a really cool opportunity. Like John, in your college experience, you probably played some incredible golf courses.
We were lucky. Like, I went to UW, so we played a good schedule. I played Olympic Club in San Francisco, a couple other private clubs in LA, and like to Jason's point, courses never would have been able to play. One time I finished playing at Olympic Club after the tournament, and we were going to fly out of San Francisco to another event on the East Coast. I wanted to hit a bucket of balls before our van showed up, and I went to the golf shop and said, "Hey, I wouldn't mind getting a bucket of balls to practice before we leave." I mean, we were so lucky to even be on property to play a tournament, let alone use the facility. So he was quite entertained that I thought I'd have a chance to go hit a bucket of balls. So needless to say, playing a golf course I never would have been able to play otherwise. So to finish up the general talk, and hopefully have a couple more questions. I would, all you young people out there that are sort of thinking about this, I still look back fondly. It's been a number of years ago, but I still look back so fondly on my years of playing college golf. I still keep in touch with all my teammates. Well, not a couple guys. They were not worthy of keeping in touch with for whatever reason. But I keep in touch with so many of them. It was such great times. Love the campus experience. Got a great education. I really can't speak highly enough about how awesome it is and how worth it is to work to gain it and earn it. You'll love it. It'll shape your life. It'll teach you so much about who you are as a person, and it's going to be awesome. So I would urge you to get in there, work hard, and do everything you can. So let's open it up to some questions. Again, if you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, or you want to type it in. There's a question from Michelle. Costs, is there an average you can give us, parents, on what D1 school would cost? Good question. Obviously, different schools have different tuitions and different room and boards and those sorts of things. I would tell you this, that it's really quite rare to be getting more than 50% scholarship funding, especially coming out of Canada. And one of the things we face as Canadians is we are out-of-state athletes. So tuitions are generally 2 to 3 times for an out-of-state student. So obviously there's more cost just from that standpoint. So it is rare to get full funding. On the boys' side, there's only 4.5 full scholarships allowed per team. So on teams that are carrying 8 to 10 players, you do start doing the math. There might not be a lot of funding to give 100% to one player. So the coaches are starting to try to manage that as best they can. On the women's side, there's 6 full scholarships. So quite a lot easier to get more funding on the female side. As far as a dollar amount, again, it so much depends on which school you're talking about and what their tuitions might be. If I just pull out a number based on a 50% scholarship funding sort of scenario, travel and all in, $15,000 a year. I wouldn't hold me to that number, but that's a guess that I would throw out based on some of the numbers I've seen. Who's got other questions? Like, where was Jason the first 20 minutes? I'd like to know that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to leave you high and dry.
I'm so needy. Okay, 30 more seconds to come up with a great question. No problem, Adam.
So one of the things like John was giving me a hard time for, I was late to this conversation because we had one of our members in here and I was making him even more awesome. One of the things that I know John's already talked about, but I just like to emphasize it while we give you a few minutes to come up with a question is, while it's really attractive to think about playing at the University of Hawaii or South Carolina or something like that, you have to consider those costs. And we do have some incredibly good golf programs just here in BC, whether that's in Victoria or in Vancouver, even in the Okanagan, that can provide a really cool experience. If you're trying to get away from home, you can do that too. But the quality of education in Canada is incredibly high. And we also have the benefit of not being like an out-of-state or be considered an international student. So there's a lot to be considered for going to school in sort of the market or the area that you think you might ultimately have a career if you're not going to if you don't think you're going to become a professional, but want to have a good college experience. But creating those networks, I know that John probably can speak to the networks he created in Seattle and the local area. Those connections, those are really valuable. Most schools have a great group of boosters and business people that really support the programs, and getting to know those people in your local market or in a market that you intend to possibly work or have a career down the road is also part of the consideration. So Div 1 is absolutely sort of the gold standard for quality of golf. And they've got some great schools as well. I think if you look at University of British Columbia and UVic as well, boy, those are really highly rated on an education standpoint. So those are options, even though they're not quite as exotic options as some of the other places that you might want to go. So anyways, what kind of scoring average do you need for the NAIA?
Yeah, my answer to that question would be the best NAIA schools, probably not too dissimilar from NCAA Div 1, par, under par, but NAIA would have a much fewer top schools. So a higher top score would get you in the door at some schools, and there'd be more options in the low to mid 70s probably to get a look at those schools. Just to sort of dovetail into what Jason was saying, the best thing you guys could possibly do if you're juniors or if you're advising a junior is, why not get really awesome? Why not give it everything you've got to be great at golf? If that's a passion you have, you can always say no. University of Hawaii phones and says, hey, we'd love you to come and play because you're that awesome, you can always say no and go to UBC. So why don't we just try to be as good as possible and then have all the options, and we can choose from the options rather than predetermining where we might want to go. So, golf can give us a great chance at great things. Why don't we just be the best we can be?
Yeah, and I think John makes a great point about being great. Like NAIA school, I think UBC is probably kind of the top of that ladder. To get into UBC, you're going to need an 80 average. If you're a boy, you're going to need an 80 average, and you're going to need to be able to shoot par in a tournament. That's going to be kind of table stakes for UBC boys team. Girls team, from a grade standpoint, same, minimum probably right around 80. But if you can shoot tournament scores in the 70s, I think you'd be in good shape. It all depends on the class and the year and what happens, and as competition gets tougher and tougher. But it is a little bit there's a little bit more room from the girl side of it for sure. Anybody else?
Okay, so
go ahead.
So we got a couple of questions. Will this be available on video? I got a message from our tech guy, David, that said, I think on YouTube. I don't have all the details yet, but please, if you want that, I forget who asked the question about access to this after the fact. And also you can see on the screen there, both mine and Jason's emails. I didn't know your cell number. It's in my phone. So please feel free to reach out to us for that resource sheet I told you about. I've got all those website links all in one document, so it's really easy to put somewhere and have your access. And we're here to help in any way we can. So, like I said, love to see everybody that wants to go play college golf do that, because it's fantastic. And we just like to see anybody playing golf because we're sort of biased, but we think golf's where it's at.
I'd just like to thank everybody for tuning in and giving us your valuable time. Hopefully we brought some value to your day, and use this as a resource on an ongoing basis if you have any questions either about college pathways, or if you've got questions just about your golf game, we're here to help as well. So thank you, everybody. And John, just closing remarks.
Thanks, Jason. It's been great. Thanks for tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Be safe.